Welcome viewers. Today is the 1st of April 2026 and you are watching us live from New Delhi in India. The 1st of April 2026 is not just any other day in your calendar. Today is a historic day, in fact a watershed day when it comes to India, and why it is so is precisely why you have tuned in, and that is exactly what we are celebrating today. Today we are actually celebrating India CSR Day. What is CSR? What is the full form of CSR? We will discuss today. And this year's inaugural celebration of this very landmark legislation that came from India, where CSR was tabled in Parliament, subsequently adapted by Indian businesses, and the kind of impact that CSR has had in India has been transformative, as India today is all set to become a Vishwa Guru or a global leader. Therefore, today we are very, very pleased to have with us, in fact, an honor to have with us the father of Indian CSR himself, Dr. Bhaskar Chatterjee, who wrote the CSR legislation with his own hands. And today, sir, we will go down memory lane as you actually take us through that entire journey that not only India, but the entire global South is so proud of. Also joining us in this inaugural panel over the next 60 minutes is Mr. Nikhil Pant, founding member of one of India's foremost not-for-profits, Richa. But most importantly, you are also sir's former colleague in the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. So you will also help us go back several years. And thank you to all of you who are joining us live on the 1st of April 2026 as we celebrate India CSR Day for the first time ever, a day where we want to celebrate the contribution that businesses have made towards inclusive India. Coming to you, sir, first, the very obvious question everybody wants to know: why was the 1st of April celebrated as the India CSR Day?
So Rohan, yes, this is indeed a very memorable day for all of us. And coming straight to the reason, you would remember that in December of 2013, the last session of Parliament was held before the new government was ushered in. And the Companies Act was passed at that time, Section 135. That actually was made effective from the 1st of April 2014. And it is for this reason that the 1st of April has in many ways become sacrosanct. It is also the first day of a financial year, so you tee off on that particular day and plan all your programs for the rest of the year. So that is the reason why 1st of April for all of us CSR practitioners, CSR lovers, PSR community, 1st of April is such a great day.
Sir, also India is blessed with the Indian public sector, of which you have been the former secretary of the Department of Public Enterprises. Does this day hold any significance as far as the Indian public sector undertakings are concerned?
Rohan, roll it back 4 years, okay? And you would see that for public sector enterprises, the first ever guidelines on CSR were also made effective, coincidentally, from the 1st of April 2010. And that's why in our country, the public sector has a 4-year lead on corporate social responsibility before the private sector was mandated to come into the picture.
No better way to set the context by the father of Indian CSR himself. And this, of course, makes us all very nostalgic. But before we come to Nikhil, you, sir, I think CSR from India is synonymous with what all of us have grown up, and I'm sure a lot of you joining us live have at some point in your life encountered the very famous Chatterjee-isms. So what are these Chatterjee-isms? Because today is also a celebration of you and your team. We want to recognize and honor all of them. So those of them who are joining us live, thank you so much for doing this contribution to the country. But sir, what are the Chatterjee-isms? Everybody wants to know very briefly, sir.
So let me refer to 2 or 3 of them, and Nikhil would very fondly recall those times when we were initiating the law and it was necessary to transmit, to propagate, to tell the country what exactly we were doing. And the first thing that comes up in the discussion on CSR is how we moved it from the back room to the boardroom. We understand, Rohan, in the corporate sector, it has to be board driven, otherwise it doesn't get done. And because now the new law said that there has to be a CSR committee of the board, and that CSR committee finalizes, supervises, and puts up to the board, the decision of the board is final and binding. And therefore, we said, rather than something that happens intermittently or ad hoc, it now becomes a board-driven agenda. That's Chatterjeeism 1. With the passage of time, we also said, this is very important for us, that whereas corporates would fund, would monitor, would supervise, and maybe carry out assessments, but in the end, who would implement on the field? And for that, we had our NGOs, our civil society organizations. And therefore, with this passage of time, what have we seen? That the initial trust deficit between corporates and NGOs have gradually narrowed. And that is why the second Chatterjeeism, which says corporatization of NGOs and NGOization of corporates, each has learned from the other. In the process of collaboration, each has adopted so much from the other. The final one, and the most important one in many ways, is that we said it is CSR if it is a project. If it is not a project, it is not CSR. That's the way that all CSR activity must be in project mode.
No better person to hear about the conceptual framework of CSR emerging out of India than from you, sir. So thank you for those initial remarks. Coming to you, Nikhil, I could see that you were nodding your head like a very obedient student. And I think all of us here, as well as many of you joining us live today, are students of Dr. Chatterjee, and we have been proponents of your Chatterjeeisms. Coming to you, Nikhil, you, other than running a very successful not-for-profit, like Sir mentioned, have also been part of the CSR policy framework. And in that, this year, ladies and gentlemen, we are celebrating the first ever India CSR Day. And we have decided to dedicate the first ever India CSR Day to the Indian Armed Forces. So you would be very happy to know, because Nikhil, you have a strong connection. What has been your interpretation of CSR for India, India for CSR, which, by the way, is the tagline for this year's India CSR Summit?
So first of all, thank you, Rohan, for having me over for this very, very important discussion. And to take cue from what Sir was just saying, what I did was, when I was with Sir at the IICA, at the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, he did mention that this can be a game changer, depending upon the way this rolls out on the ground. And after my stint with Sir, I went to the ground myself. And Sir just mentioned about the three aspects of the role of the board, the corporatization of the NGOs, and the role of projects. What I thought was it is very important to go to the field and check out and see through my own NGO how this works out. And I got an amazing opportunity to work with the Indian Army in Kashmir. And we developed some project. We started from Baramulla, and as of today, we are working in Kupwara, Boniar, and Uri. We developed projects, engagement models where we brought the Awam or the community together into the army campus through Operation Sadbhavna, and developed an engagement wherein the corporates came in with their funds. We began with ONGC, then Genpact came on board, then today we have IFL Foundation, we have other funders like the Taj Group Indian Hotel Company Limited. And we found that when we developed these projects that you just mentioned, these projects used to always tell us there's a starting date and there's an end date, there's a budget. You then work through this compliance framework and then have a very clear focus on outcomes and impact. And that is what project mode is all about. And when the corporates who were taking these decisions from the backroom to the boardroom, in their policy, and they gave us funds, and we also, as part of this, I'll be happy to know, as we worked with government and with the army there, we realized that we had to corporatize ourselves also as an NGO. So this was the second point that Sir was saying. And when we were on the field, if we did not align with the mandate of the funding organization, then we would fail in their compliances. And the only way we could do it was through very defined projects, which was the third thing that Sir was saying. So over the last 10 years, we have worked right across Kashmir, and now we are working in 4 or 5 states from the Northeast. I feel that CSR for India and India for CSR is a wonderful jugalbandi, I would say. And this is the jugalbandi of shareholder money, which is the 2% CSR, and taxpayer money, which is the government program. That is, there is a good co-creation of project and the intervention model is properly thought through, I think there can be amazing game-changing results, which can be transformative. And later on, I think I will speak more about this because as you talk and as you share these experiences from the ground, you then begin to realize what an amazing legislation, sir, you initiated. And I remember again, the first thing you told me over there was, like in case of the management, the IIMs came around. You said we have to develop a cadre of CSR professionals. And we started the IICA certified program on CSR. And that developed the first cohort of professionals. Many of them were from the CSR, from the HR departments of corporates, who were then making those CSR policies and coming in from the backroom to the boardroom and part of the CSR committee. So they got trained in the right way of projectivization, etc. Then when I went to the field, I could see what sir was teaching us 10 years ago. So that is the amazing aspect of policy on the ground. This is a clear example, I think, when you talk about public policy, I think the implementation of CSR policy on ground over the last 10, 12 years has been the game changer for nation building in India.
Thank you so much, Nikhil, for really setting the context. And given that this year, sir, the inaugural Indian CSR Day, the tagline is CSR for India, I'll come straight to you, sir. What was going on in your mind when you thought of devising CSR for India?
Well, reflecting back, let me say without hesitation, what was I creating? I was creating a kind of ecosystem for whom? For my nation. So it became CSR for India, by India, in India. We were doing something that had never been tried in any part of this planet before. It was unique from conceptualization to what we hoped would be execution. And therefore, in this very Indian model, a Bharatiya model, if I may say so, and I can explain this very simply. What is this model? The simpler that you can explain to people, the more traction it gets. The more complex it becomes, more difficult to comprehend. And so in my mind, I had this incredible trikone or triangle where I placed government at the apex and I said it is the regulator, it is also the facilitator. Two ends of the base. One obviously corporate, which funds, monitors, and also assesses impact because it would want to know what happened to the money that they put into the project. But who would implement at the ground level, at the field level? Who would make that transformational change happen? And who but our civil society organizations, our NGOs, who live and breathe with communities, who understand their problems, who empathize, and who then can advise corporates as to what kind of projects must actually come. And this, in a sense, is our Bharatiya model.
So I'll just take you on that because I think one of the successes, and I'm so glad you brought in the NGOs and civil society organizations to which you belong. But sir, to hear from you, would you say that this, and you mentioned about trust deficit, do you feel today, looking back, that this relationship where there was always a schism between the corporate and the NGOs has actually been bridged and there's more social harmony, there's more cohesion between these two stakeholders?
You know, Rohan, this is such an important point. I remember that when I would reflect on what we had done, the act we had passed, the rules we had framed, to me, I spent sleepless nights thinking, if this fails, for what reason would it fail? And the answer was exactly this, that corporates and NGOs would not work together, that they were water and oil, immiscible liquids. But it turned out exactly the opposite. Gradually, with the passage of time, each reached out to the other. To the point, you know, Rohan, many corporates are actually inviting NGOs to come and discuss. At the beginning, when they formulate the annual action plan, they ask, what is it that we can do which we didn't do last year? Give us innovation, give us ideas, and we will take them up.
Wow. So thank you so much, sir, for really, from the father of Indian CSR, saying that one of the most impactful things that CSR has done, and I saw you again nodding in agreement, being an NGO yourself. But coming to the second part of this year's theme, which is India for CSR. Yeah. So Nikhil, you have worked very closely with sir in the ministry. You have seen this entire rollout. Yeah. When we take stock of almost after a decade, Do you feel that India Inc. or the business has really, what has been the nature of adoption of the CSR agenda? Do you see a little bit of aversion? Do you see a lot of zeal? And then, of course, we'll come to where do you see this whole defense agenda come in? Do you think it's going to work from the experience that you have had?
Absolutely, Rohan, and I will again take cue from what sir was saying. And so you often call it the Indian agenda CSR.
Yes.
Which was very specific for our requirement. And the Schedule 7 is to see the various activities are all aligned to the Indian requirements. I have, as of today, when we are through Richa, we are working with, say, for example, we're doing a program called Nokia Smart Board, where we work at the panchayat level. So in the panchayat level, what we do is you've got panchayat ghars which have been set up by government. It is taxpayer money. But often they are not able to take those government welfare schemes to the last person. That's where the 2% of Nokia comes in, and the partner is an NGO called Richa. So what is happening is that this trust which has now begun to flow through on the ground, which is what sir was saying. When we are discussing the model of intervention and a donor is asking an NGO, what is it that you bring to the need assessment that you're doing at the panchayat level, they are then trusting us also. And often I'm finding that when we do good compliance and good impact results with good documentation, the giver ends the corporate, because they have to spend money. They need good partners. So they often say that, can you come up with more centers? Because we are finding that there are results which are positive, we are getting good feedbacks. So the donor or the corporate who is mandated to spend is wanting those partners, and they're doing a lot of co-creation through this project model of intervention. This is what is happening. Another example, as I said, again, going to the defense, as I said, we are working right across Kashmir in some very strategic locations. I have found that the Indian Army is there is a perception management that the Army does. Okay, what is it that the Army is trying to do in Kashmir? It is not an occupation army. They also had a development phase to it.
That's right.
Operation Sadbhavna. We call it the non-kinetic approach to community engagement. So CSR provides them that tool to engage. And when that engagement is through a project model where the co-creation is also happening with the funder, as again sir mentioned about, it is all kind of aligning the boardroom, the background to the boardrooms and the annual action plan. It all merges, and you see that when the army is taking up these programs of skill building with the youth, and they come to these army centers called the Chinar Naujawan clubs, we find that the same youth was the one which was getting misled by across the border forces. Or the same youth is getting, instead of an AK-47 in their hand, unko kalam mil rahi hai haath mein. They're getting a pen in their hand. This is
Such a terrific development. I mean, this is really incredible.
I'll give you, sir, another example.
What we'll do is that, as we stay in the flow of a conversation, let me also talk about how we're bringing this into a summit.
Yes.
All that Nikhil is talking about is something that we want to really showcase before our nation.
Okay.
And what better day to do this than today? Rohan, the fact is that we want to do what, I might call the India CSR Summit Armed Forces 2026.
That will be great.
Because imagine.
Are we launching that today, sir?
Yes.
Great.
Therefore, to all our viewers, let's say that we are launching, in fact, announcing that this CSR Summit, which was targeted specifically towards the work that has been done, needs to be done for the armed forces of our country, this is going to be the summit theme for this year. And who else to partner better than CyberPeace on the one hand, and India CSR, whose founder and editor, Mr. Hussain, will also be with us shortly. So with that, I thought I would mention to our audience that this is going to be the big announcement of the day.
Wow. So they couldn't have been
Really fantastic. And again, sir, just to add this defense part, Army is all about compliances and impact, and that is what CSR is also talking about. So collaboration of CSR with the defense during the inaugural CSR day of the year is the most amazing combination, I feel, and it is to send in the strongest message on nation building.
So there couldn't have been a better end to this beginning of the inaugural India CSR Day, which is the first time that we are celebrating not only our armed forces, but we're also celebrating Indian businesses who have contributed to social development. And one more thing, Dr. Chatterjee, to your credit, I think no matter which part of the country, India is a country of diversity. No matter what language you speak, I think CSR as a concept that has come out from India, from your hands, and we are honored, sir, today to have you with us celebrate live the first ever India CSR Day. Thank you so much for your time.
Hello and welcome, viewers. The theme of India CSR Day is CSR for India, India for CSR. Continuing with us is Dr. Bhaskar Chatterjee, who you've met before, and joining him is Mr. Rusen Kumar, the founder editor of India CSR. Now, I'm going to break this tagline up: CSR for India, India for CSR, and I'm going to address my question to Dr. Chatterjee as the father of Indian CSR, former government the secretary to the government of India. Sir, what does CSR for India mean for you?
It means many things, frankly speaking. Let's understand quite clearly that this was a legislation which looked at our country, our nation, our priorities. What is the development trajectory of our nation? When we were writing the law, we were conceptualizing the idea of the law. The concept was, how do we bring CSR to work for the national development agenda? And therefore, we wanted to give to this nation something that would trigger or allow corporate India to have a part to play in the inclusive development of the nation. Also, corporate India, along with our 3.3 million registered civil society organizations, those among them who would come forward, would work for the nation, would work in tandem with corporate India. And with that partnership, we envisaged an entire ecosystem with government at the apex and India Inc. and civil society India playing their role. Now, over these 10 years, we've seen how much CSR has given to India. It is CSR for India. Has it been for India? And if you look at these almost 12 years of unfolding practice on the ground, you will see how wonderfully the synergy between corporate India and NGO India has worked out. Obviously, when you roll out a program as large as this, a spending of 36,000 crores, 28,000 companies, it cannot be an unqualified, unmatched success. There would be shortcomings, and I'm the first one to admit that. There's still so much to be done. But in the way that we have progressed, in the way that the experiment, if I may call that, now changed into a movement, that itself flags the sustainability of the thought, the idea, the legislation. And think of it this way, Jai, to that section 135, 12 years down the line, not a single amendment. That in itself signifies how much it has stood the test of time.
Brilliant to put, sir. And I'm going to continue this thought and flip it around and ask Mr. Rusen Kumar, what does India for CSR mean to you?
Thank you for this great question. India for CSR means कि इंडिया ने CSR के आइडिया को एस्टैब्लिश करने के लिए लॉ दिया, जी, कानून दिया, गवर्नेंस दिया, कंप्लीट क्लैरिटी दी कि क्या CSR है, क्या CSR नहीं है, किसको हम CSR के दायरे में रखे होंगे, कब वो CSR बनेगा, ये पूरी कंप्लीट एक
फ्रेमवर्क जैसे
जिसको आप कहते हैं क्लियर, स्पष्ट, ये बहुत बड़ा कंट्रीब्यूशन है कि CSR का कॉन्सेप्ट बहुत पहले से है, लेकिन उसको अपना बनाना, इंडिया के प्रायोरिटी के साथ उसको मैच करना, ये सबसे बड़ा कंट्रीब्यूशन है इस कॉन्सेप्ट को, और दुनिया में इस कॉन्सेप्ट को एक्सप्लोर करने वाला भारत अपनी तरह का पहला देश है। और इसका जो नेचर है वो हमारी डेमोक्रेसी के साथ बहुत अलाइन करता है। डेमोक्रेसी में वो लॉ में पहले होना चाहिए, तब वो जल्दी एक्सेप्ट होगा। उसमें आपको कोई प्रेशर नहीं होगा, यदि वो है तो सबके लिए बराबर होगा। और सेकेंड है दैट इज इंफॉर्मेशन। जब लॉ में आप उसको लाते हैं तो आप यू आर बाउंड टू गिव इंफॉर्मेशन, जो आपके रिपोर्टिंग में CSR लॉ की रिपोर्टिंग में वो बहुत स्पष्ट दिखता है। तो हम इंडिया की ओर से ये जो फिलॉसफी है कॉर्पोरेट सोशल रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी को कैसे हम इस्टेब्लिश करें, उसके लिए हमें बहुत सारे लोगों का कंट्रीब्यूशन चाहिए। गवर्नेंस के लेवल पर, मीडिया के लेवल पर, स्टेक होल्डर्स के लेवल पर, NGO के स्तर पर, रिसर्चर के कैसे कंट्रीब्यूट करेंगे, हमारा जो एकेडमिक्स है, यूनिवर्सिटीज़ हैं, कॉलेजेस हैं, प्रोफेसर्स हैं, उस आइडिया को किस तरह इस्टेब्लिश करेंगे। ये भारत की ओर से CSR को या इंडिया की ओर से CSR को कंट्रीब्यूशन होगा।
बहुत बढ़िया हुसैन साहब, आपने यू हैव जस्ट पुट द stakeholders central to the argument, and I'm so happy that you brought this in, because when you look at stakeholders beyond the Chatterjee Trikon, if I may say, which is government, business and community, और भी stakeholders है। Investors एक stakeholder है जो shares खरीदते बेचते हैं basis the CSR reputation of the company। Consumer है stakeholder CSR के, कि कंपनी का reputation देख के, या फिर HR या एम्प्लॉयज़ है जो कंपनी का रेपुटेशन देख के ज्वाइन करते या छोड़ देते हैं। एंड फाइनली इस सब के मीडिया एक स्टेक होल्डर है जो इन सब को जोड़ता है। एंड आई एम सो हैप्पी आपने ये जिक्र किया, तो थोड़ा सा बताएं ऑन मीडिया एज अ स्टेक होल्डर।
देखिए, जब CSR लॉ इस्टेब्लिश हो रहा था 2009 में, तो इसके बारे में पब्लिक पे कोई इन्फॉर्मेशन नहीं थी। यानी सर्टेन कॉरपोरेट्स जो क्लेम करती थी, जो लार्ज कॉरपोरेट्स हैं, वो कुछ ही 1 पैराग्राफ 2 पैराग्राफ में उनके फिलॉसफी में वो था, लेकिन उससे अधिक इन्फॉर्मेशन कोई नहीं था। और 2009 में जब ये इवॉल्व हुआ तो मुझे लगा कि इसमें बहुत पोटेंशियल है इस कॉन्सेप्ट में। इस कॉन्सेप्ट को इंडिया बहुत आज आगे ले जा सकता है, खासकर रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी डिस्चार्ज करने के मामले में हम लोग बहुत पीछे रहते हैं। ड्यूटी बेस्ड हमें अपने सोसाइटी को बनाना है। हम जितना अधिक ड्यूटी डिस्चार्ज करेंगे उतना अधिक हमारी जो सोशल जस्टिस है या लोगों की जो नीड है वो पूरी हो सकती है। हम इसको और आगे ले जाने के लिए, ये कॉन्सेप्ट बहुत बड़ा कॉन्सेप्ट था, लेकिन इसकी कोई भी इंफॉर्मेशन, प्राइमरी इंफॉर्मेशन पब्लिक में नहीं थी। अभी इंडिया CSR में 60,000 प्लस आर्टिकल है, जिसमें आप 5,000 से अधिक इंटरव्यूज लोगों के आप पढ़ सकते हैं। कौन सी कंपनी क्या कर रही है, क्या सोच रही है, क्या उनका आइडियोलॉजी है, चेयरमैन का क्या पर्सपेक्टिव है, CEOs का क्या पर्सपेक्टिव है, एवरी आर्टिकल में ये एस्टैब्लिश हो रहा है। आज एवरी डे एटलीस्ट 50 कंपनीज आर सेंडिंग देयर
That's a milestone.
the CSR to be featured in
Fantastic.
to be in the website.
Fantastic.
So it is very difficult to read every email and make a story, क्योंकि वो एक स्टेटमेंट की ओर से तरह भेजते हैं, उसको आपको पब्लिक के लिए तैयार करना, यानी इम्पैक्ट बेस उसको बनाना इज़ वेरी डिफिकल्ट। और जब तक कॉन्सेप्ट नहीं होगा, आइडिया नहीं होगा, विचार नहीं होगा, प्राइमरी इंफॉर्मेशन नहीं होगा, ये CSR का जो कॉन्सेप्ट है वो आगे नहीं बढ़ेगा। उसके लिए हमें किताबें चाहिए, ऑथर्स चाहिए, राइटर्स चाहिए। अभी मैंने एक स्ट्रेटेजिक मूव लिया है कि आई एम आस्किंग कंपनीज लीडर्स टू राइट, बजाय हम अपनी तरफ से लिखने के बजाय हम वो उनके आर्टिकल्स को फीचर करें, सो दैट एज इट इज़ उनके थॉट यहाँ पर पब्लिक के लिए अवेलेबल हो। और इससे उनमें दो तरह का होता है कि वो जब वो लिखते हैं तो वो सोचते भी हैं। जब आप लिखते हैं तो बहुत सारी चीज़ों को आपको पढ़ना पड़ता है।
Very true. I
आगे
couldn't agree more. The way he is expounding it, unless there is a lot of writing, lot of expression of thought, जिसका एक्चुअली ये जो मैगजीन इन्होंने शुरू किया है वो एक जरिया है उसका।
नहीं सर, एक्चुअली आपने जो जैसे देख रहे हो एंड गोइंग फॉरवर्ड, अभी अगर CSR देखा जाए तो वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट द सोशल पार्ट ऑफ इट, बट अगर आप सस्टेनेबिलिटी के दायरे से देखोगे देन इट्स ऑल्सो पार्ट ऑफ द एनवायरमेंट, सोशल एंड गवर्नेंस पैराडाइम।
एब्सोल्युटली।
तो ये तो नीड फॉर रिसर्च, नीड फॉर raw basic data, need for social outcome data, this is becoming more and more core. What is your view on this, sir?
No, I couldn't agree with you more. If you look at the organic evolution of CSR,
Wonderful.
it is actually moving towards ESG. Because when you talk about responsible management, you're talking about responsibility and rights. We talk only of rights, but in reality, it has to be about responsibility.
Correct.
When the responsibilities are discharged, then only rights can be fulfilled. Right? Therefore, the larger ecosystem of responsible management, which ESG reflects, because when you talk of ESG, you're looking at a 360-degree assessment of the company, which is non-financial. Therefore, environment, in what way are the activities of the company posing challenges to the planet, right? Social, that we talk about, whether it's CSR, whether it's about the workspace, whether it's about human rights, and of course the governance aspect. And I'll be happy to share with you the fact that I now chair the first ever ESG Standards Committee of the nation through BIF.
Fantastic. So the father of CSR is also leading forward in the space of ESG.
Thank you. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so I was saying that therefore sustainability in the larger perspective that you were reflecting on is a natural progression. CSR was our first step, which wasn't there in any other part of the planet.
Right.
And therefore India has this unique combination of a CSR law driven by statute and an ESG framework which is driven by the principal corporate regulator, that is SEBI. And therefore, I think
This is so
India is the
interesting.
only country which is twice blessed because we have that kind of a policy framework within which we can put our best foot forward.
That was a wonderful, extempore suggestion, Mr. Hussain. I'm coming to you, Dr. Chatterjee. How does this social justice come into the way Hussain just mentioned, that we have to take a responsible approach towards CSR and the way forward?
I'd like to echo what Mr. Hussain just said. Frankly speaking, I have not worked on this much. It's a new thought. But the fact remains that when you look at CSR and its ecosystem, it is actually pointing towards social justice. Correct. Because when you execute CSR programs on the ground and projects are actually at the grassroots level, who are you working with? You're working with communities where the requirement for justice is maximum. How do we ensure that justice is actually done than just talk about it? We know well that what is measured, if it is not measured, is usually not done. Correct. And therefore, it is important for us to understand that we carry out a social impact assessment of the projects and programs under CSR. You will be happy to know in the January 22nd circular of 2021, we have actually made it mandatory for projects above a threshold of 1 crore of value to be third-party evaluated, assessed. Therefore, you cannot now sing your own song. A third party has to assess how much of an impact, a durable, measurable, sustainable impact it has actually had on the ground. And when that transparency comes, when corporates realize that what they do is not just for them to propagate, it is for impartial viewing by all your stakeholders to understand whether there has been a real impact on the ground. If that has not happened, the delivery of social justice will not happen. So therefore, to me, social impact assessment in the best way that we can do, in the most objective way that we can do, must be taken forward.
So, coming to you, Rusinji, how do you institutionalize a thought like this? Because when we're looking at it from the framework of CSR, we're looking at it from a lens where there is a corporate which is working, there's an NGO which is implementing, and there's a community which is being impacted. Now, when we look at it from a national framework, how do you institutionalize a thought like this going into the future?
देखिए, जो कॉर्पोरेट सोशल रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी का जो आइडिया है
जी।
वो फोकस्ड है कारपोरेट पर। हमने पहली बार भारत में कारपोरेट को समाज की ओर जाने के लिए इस लॉ के थ्रू मजबूर किया है। यही सबसे बड़ी इस लॉ की, इस कानून की खूबी है। अदरवाइज कोई व्यक्ति समाज की ओर जाने के लिए, उसको देखने के लिए उसके पास कोई मैकेनिज्म नहीं था, कोई फोर्स नहीं था, कोई मोटिवेशन नहीं था। तो ये जो इंस्टीट्यूशनलाइज जो हुआ है, ये इसका जो संस्थागत इसका जो वैल्यू है, ये बहुत बड़ा इम्पोर्टेंस का है। और बिना कारपोरेट्स के जो भविष्य में जो भी कुछ होगा सब ऑर्गेनाइज्ड होगा। यानी पानी का बॉटल बनाने वाला भी ऑर्गेनाइज्ड होगा, आपका खाना देने वाला भी ऑर्गेनाइज्ड हो रहा है। तो द इंडिया इज मूविंग टुवर्ड्स ऑर्गेनाइज्ड इंडिया। So that's why corporate social responsibility is very very important. Important ये है कि हम अपनी जो रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है कितना इम्पोर्टेंट के साथ, कितना उसको ईमानदारी से, कितना समझदारी से, कितना उसमें रिसोर्स डालकर, अंडरस्टैंडिंग डालकर, नॉलेज, विजडम जो कुछ भी हो सके उसको एक्सटेंड करने में हम जो लगाएंगे, वही इसको आगे ले जाएगा, वही इसको इस्टेब्लिश करेगा। और इसके लिए वी नीड टू डॉक्यूमेंट कॉर्पोरेट एक्शन, कॉर्पोरेट वर्क, एवरीडे डॉक्यूमेंटेशन इज रिक्वायर्ड। आप इसको कुछ समय बाद करेंगे, ऐसा सोचेंगे तो वो प्रायोरिटी बदल जाती है। दैट्स वाई आज क्या हो रहा है, इस 3 महीने में क्या हुआ, इस महीने क्या हुआ, इस महीने कौन सी कारपोरेट से बड़ी चीज़ें की, ये एवरीडे इसमें डॉक्यूमेंटेशन करने की ज़रूरत है। और लेकिन इसमें एक इशू ये है कि मीडिया को बहुत सारे रिसोर्स चाहिए, और उसके लिए हमारे पास कोई मैकेनिज्म नहीं है टू प्रोटेक्ट, टू राइटर्स, टू जर्नलिस्ट। ये एक हमारे पास चैलेंज है जिस पर कारपोरेट को भी इस दिशा में।
तो आप क्या सजेस्ट कर रहे हो कि CSR बजट में IEC नाम के जो हेडिंग है, इंफॉर्मेशन, एजुकेशन एंड कम्युनिकेशन, इसमें मीडिया को भी इंक्लूड किया जाए टू सर्टेन एक्सटेंट?
मीडिया को इंक्लूड ना किया जाए, क्योंकि मीडिया इंडिपेंडेंस जितनी रहेगी
जी,
उतनी उसकी अथॉरिटी रहेगी।
करेक्ट।
तो
बट आपने इंस्टीट्यूशनलाइजेशन की बात की,
हाँ जी।
और जहाँ तक मैं जानता हूँ रुसेन साहब इस विषय में एक बहुत बड़ा कदम रखने वाले हैं।
तो बताई दीजिए संक्षिप्त में, थोड़ा सा न्यूज़ ब्रेक हो जाए।
देखिए, कारपोरेट सोशल रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी का आइडिया समाज तक पहुंच चुका है।
जी।
अब हमें जो नेक्स्ट लेवल के लोग चाहिए, इसको एग्जीक्यूटर्स चाहिए, स्टूडेंट्स जो इसको पढ़ाई करें, इस विषय को पढ़ाई करें, और फिर वो इस सेक्टर को प्रोफेशनली ज्वाइन करें। सिस्टमेटिक 3 years कोर्स, 4 year कोर्स, MBA, BSc। सो आई एम हैप्पी टू अनाउंस भास्कर जी के मार्गदर्शन में, आपसे प्रेरणा लेकर हमने इंडिया CSR एकेडमिक।
अरे so there are 2 news breaks in this segment alone. Thank you so much, viewers. We heard from Dr. Chatterjee and Mr. Rusen Kumar. We've already had a great start to the journey, CSR for India, India for CSR. And if you've tracked it, we've already had 2 news breaks, one in how to institutionalize CSR knowledge and the other in charting the way forward. Thank you so much.
A very warm welcome, everybody. Today, we have gathered here for a very important discussion on a topic which is titled CSR's Unsung Frontlines, Army Welfare and Neglected Sustainability Phase. I'm in the privileged company of Dr. Chatterjee, who's the father of Indian CSR and former Secretary to Government of India, and Major Vineet Kumar, founder and global president, CyberPeace. So, CSR in India, as we know, has expanded significantly with annual spending exceeding 35,000 crores in the financial year 2024 to 25, and a cumulative investment nearing 1.5 lakh crores since the inception of the Law in Companies Act 2013. Yet, some critical areas like army welfare and mental health remain very underserved. So we thought today that we are going to address these two critical areas and ask the experts on their view on some solutions that we can come about in these two areas. So without wasting much time, I would like to transition to Major Vineet Kumar. Sir, you have been working in the area of army and technology now that you have founded CyberPeace, and it's doing wonderful work globally as well as in India. Can you shed some light on how technology and CSR initiatives can collaborate together to serve the army welfare better?
Thank you, Dr. Sani, and it's really a pleasure to be here. And good afternoon, good morning, good evening to the audience, depending on whatever geography you are, whatever time zone you are. It's a very relevant topic that we are discussing today. CSR, mental health, and armed forces, the right intersection, maybe a topic that was probably untouched for years and something that needs to be brought out now. And when we talk about armed forces, you would be aware that there are veterans who are there. There are war widows who are there. There are also war wounded soldiers. So I would say the CSR and sustainability has a very key role to play when it comes to bringing change in their lives. When it talks about modernization, when we talk about sustainability, when we also talk about contributing to national security. For example, what we have done in India is we have something called as the Territorial Army Innovation Cell. Now, Territorial Army Innovation Cell is where it's the right, I would say, convergence of industry, academia, civil society, and the government. Different stakeholders are coming together when we talk about these convergences. And this is where I feel when we talk about technology today, we have seen like all the recent conflicts, the geopolitical conflicts that have happened, tech has played a very key role in all these geopolitical conflicts. And this is where I feel when we talk about CSR and we talk about the industry to give back in the form of a CSR, then it can actually contribute to creating the right ecosystem for fighting the wars of the future. It's not just the wars, but again, when we talk about armed forces, it is also about sustainability. Like Indian Army has the ecological TA battalions. Under the ecological TA battalions, Indian Army plants trees and we make sure that the climate is good for everyone. We also ensure sustainability and several other things. So I feel CSR, the community at large in the form of CSR can give back to the ecological TA units also. So overall, we kind of preserve nature and also we are able to ensure that the climate change and different issues that are happening globally, we are able to control that in the form of corporate social responsibility and also ensure sustainability of it.
Right, Vineet. It's really heartening to watch that, we regard army as protecting the people, but it's also protecting the earth, and how technology can be leveraged to serve, national causes at large. So can you name any one, CSR, army CSR model that is worth scaling nationally?
I feel the model that I was talking about, I will not name one, rather it's two models. What I have seen with my limited experience that I have of working with the armed forces and also ensuring that the corporate commitment also comes, the CSR and other sustainability also comes to the kind of initiative that the armed forces are doing. And one of them is again like the war wounded soldiers. When we talk about war widows, they can be skilled with AI, with technology. Globally, we have been talking about a huge skill shortage when we talk about cyber emerging technologies. And there we have a huge community of veterans. We have a community of war widows and also we have wounded soldiers who are there. So I feel when you talk about empowerment, this can be the best way to empower, where companies under corporate social responsibility can create the entire ecosystem of these people who are empowered and are ready to take up the next set of jobs that are coming in cyber and emerging technologies. So that's one model, that's skilling. The other model I mentioned earlier, that was about ecological TA battalions. It's a wonderful concept. I feel this is the where globally we are talking about being carbon neutral. Countries are setting up goals to be net zero by say 2050, 2070. I think one way where India can leapfrog is when we empower these ecological TA battalions. We have the right set of CSR funding, the support, also the ESG controls all coming in when we kind of deploy these initiatives, and to ensure that we kind of contribute to a safer and a greener planet. So that's the second model. And the third one now I'll add is technology. Technology is the future. Technology will play, I would say, a major role in times to come. We have seen we are surrounded by tech today, and armed forces today are also getting into the tech side, whether it is drones, emerging technologies, quantum, cyber security, and several other stuff that are there. So here, when we talk about corporate social responsibility, I feel the right ecosystem can be created, and it could be like a bridge, industry, academia, and also the armed forces, and including the civil society. This can be the ecosystem that can be replicated across the country, so that cutting edge researchers happen, cutting edge researchers and innovation happen. And this is where CSR can actually help to do those cutting edge researchers. Young minds, researchers can also be given a platform so that they get aware about armed forces. They get to contribute when we talk about national security, when we talk about different kind of initiative that the armed forces is taking.
Thank you, Major Vineet. I think that's a very holistic framework that you've created, right? The might of the army and the leverage of technology and fighting for a cause. I also feel the area of war veterans and widows, we don't have any programs. Maybe the government is working on this area, but perhaps we can upscale more efforts and reintegrating them and providing more support to the war veterans who fought for our country. So, yes, so transitioning to Vineet now.
Dr. Suhani, I have a question to you. And this is like, today there is an increase in the awareness on mental health. And we see awareness almost everywhere. People are getting more and more aware about these issues. But I don't see large-scale investment happening in this particular space. Can you share your views on this piece?
It's a very pertinent question, Major Vineet. I agree, there is awareness, but it is not translating into action, because often I'm also asked this very critical question in CSR or when it comes to funding, that what are the outcomes that we can measure? How can we show that a person is getting better? And companies are investing in corporate well-being courses and trainings, but this is a one-time activity that is done. It's not a sustainable, regular activity that is invested in. Secondly, the way we are pitching mental health is in the framework of, if you don't invest, you will lose your productivity. If you don't invest in your employee, they will stop. There will be more absenteeism. But we are not creating the positive framework, right? Like, what is the outcome of a resilience building program, right? How does mental health correlate with creativity? Yes. So we and India as a country, we don't have a preventive mindset. We have a reactive mindset. Only when a disease happens in the body do we go to the doctor and go for a checkup. We don't believe in investing in mental health before and then. And mostly people who come to our clinics and when we take sessions, we've realized that over a period of time, they have accumulated that stress. Secondly, I feel there is a problem of the stigma. Any employee, let's say today, if you have a cardiac problem, you'd be very happy to go and tell your friend, I went to this doctor and so, he fixed me up very well. But would you go to a friend or any person or your colleague and tell them that you went to a mental health professional? We don't. So the stigma still persists in our country. Secondly, the cost part. there is research on this that even though the Insurance Regulatory and Development Authority of India has mandated that mental health has to be covered under physical ailments, yet only 1% of claims are taken under the medical insurance. So one, people are not aware. Second, it is not recognized. Third, yes, as a fraternity, I take this full responsibility that we don't have enough professionals in the country. We don't know where to go. First is identification of the problem. Because if you say stress, everyone says I'm stressed. It's very normalized. Burnout is normalized, depression is normalized, anxiety is normalized. 70% of the corporate India is under stress and they have not received any critical care, right? There is around $1.3 trillion of loss due to mental health issues. Yet, we have not found a concerted framework to invest. So, as a fraternity, we are coming up with programs, reaching out to the corporates. And if CSR is a wonderful tool that, gives us the legitimacy to receive funds, especially NGOs that are working in this area. And the third aspect, which is so important, we need to start measuring the outcomes. This is the area of research that is very critical, and mental health needs that research. So I would now like to transition to Dr. Chatterjee on the area of research. He's been the father of Indian CSR, and he has a considerable background in research formulation. So turning to you, Dr. Chatterjee, it's clear that our army welfare is also underserved and the mental health area is also underserved. So bridging this gap between the intent and execution, where do you think is the role of research in this area, in the CSR ecosystem?
Let me say without hesitation, Suhani, any field that is newly created, like the field on CSR, will die if there is no research. At the end of the day, we have had almost 12 years of CSR practice. And if you take the public sector into account, 16 years. And therefore, with all of this practice, what has actually unfolded before us? What has happened on the field? What has happened in corporate boardrooms? How have NGOs transitioned into their new role of acting as implementing agencies? All of these areas need to be researched. Without that, the field itself will expire. It is therefore my belief that, particularly in the questions that we have raised today, in the underserved areas, underserved themes, such as the one on army welfare, such as the one on mental health, how can we now allow research and the outcomes of research to ensure that we shine the searchlight on these underserved areas? Let me say, Suhani, that it's all very well to speak about it, but it's another thing to actually do. And so I want to say to the audience today at large that I have taken a personal initiative in this regard. And we are having to actually unfold before you today, unveil the Chatterjee National CSR Fellowship Program. And I will now turn to you, Suhani, to give us some details of how it will go.
Yes, so we are very excited, and thank you, sir, for translating, action on the research field. So we are inviting young, old, there is no age bar, to come and participate in the fellowship. So the steps for this is that you will first submit your research proposal, which is step 1. You will fill in the Google interest form, and the registration fees, everything is mentioned there. Second, you will submit your proposal to us. Third, the team will review your CSR proposal. Fourth, you're going to present it in front of the board and they're going to select your idea and your proposal. And then finally, your fellowship will be awarded, which is 1 lakh rupees of research grant we are offering to each fellowship student. And you will be personally and professionally handheld and guided by our very own Dr. Chatterjee on your entire journey. And I can assure you that this will not just be a research that you are doing, it will be a journey you will be taking in the social sector of our country and contributing to this cause of, the nation building.
And may I say, Suhani, that this fellowship is actually open to two categories. The first category is our practitioners who are actually implementing on the field, which also includes corporate CSR heads and others who work in the CSR vertical of corporates, because they are the ones who oversee the proposals that the corporates have sponsored. So practitioners who are pretty much every day in the game of running CSR projects. But at the same time, the second will go to academics. So people who are doing work on CSR, have done some partial research on CSR, are aware of how CSR projects are unfolding. And this would be for researchers who are in different universities, who are interested in the subject, who are doing some work in the subject, or are teaching the subject. And it is to them that I'm reaching out. So just to mention, for practitioners as well as for academics, this is an opportunity for you to actually showcase the best of the best that you have done. And I assure you that at the end of the day, when we have the winners announced and when the research is finally done, we are hoping that we will be able to also publish those researches in some of the finest journals internationally and nationally.
Right. Thank you so much, sir. And over to Major Vineet. So one takeaway, Major Vineet, which CyberPeace would be working on in the army welfare area or perhaps mental health.
So, Dr. Suhani, actually, when we talk about mental health, your subject, and also when we talk about armed forces, one of the issues that we see is a lot of armed forces, veterans, even serving officers, families are being targeted with a lot of scams and frauds. And that affects their mental health, well-being, and a lot of other connected issues. So one thing that we are kind of taking it strong is to set up the cyber wellness centers. Could start up with the National Cyber Wellness Center and also have these regional community centers as well. And this is where we invite basically the community at large, the CSR community at large, to come forward and support these wellness centers, because we have to protect them, from the entire community, from cyber harms as well. So that's my key message. And also Dr. Chatterjee has also joined the Global Advisory Council of CyberPeace. We are also venturing into CSR and ESG services. So anybody who's looking forward to handhold them in this regard, we'll be very happy to assist, handhold individuals, organizations in this aspect as well. So that's one key message which I thought I'll deliver. And it's very nice to be a part of this conversation today.
So thank you, Major Vineet. I really respect and honor the fact that you are now stepping into CSR advisory services as well. It's a pleasure that I have come on board, and we hope to serve the larger CSR community even better than we have done in the past. It's been a pleasure, joining up with you and announcing this initiative today.
Thank you so much, Major Vineet, for this significant step. Often the conversations don't translate into action, but we have doers here today with us, and with Sir launching the fellowship and Vineet with his Cyber Heal initiative. All the very best, and thank you so much for being here with us today. Thank you.
And so we come to the end of 3 sessions of deliberations. Over these 3 sessions, we have covered underserved thematics such as mental health and service to our armed forces. We have covered social justice, we have covered institutionalization, we have covered media, and a whole host of other issues. But there have also been 4 major announcements. Number 1, CyberPeace has announced its CSR and ESG advisory services. Number 2, India CSR has announced, through Mr. Rusen, the setting up of the India CSR Academy. Number 3, it has been my personal privilege to announce the Chatterjee National CSR Fellowships, 1 year's duration, 2 fellowships, value of 1 lakh each. And finally, and most importantly, we have announced the holding very shortly of the India CSR Summit for Defense Forces. Ladies and gentlemen, to all our viewers, to all those who have been patient enough to listen to us through these 3 sessions, may I make a very, very sincere, a very heartfelt appeal to all of you to turn up and support in large numbers, in whatever manner you can, wherever you are, this CSR initiative, this summit, which supports our armed forces who protect our borders, protect our country, particularly at this time of geophysical uncertainty, where national security has become such a terrific issue. To all of you, come and help us, support us, and make this into one of the greatest summits that we have had in India ever. Thank you.